welcome to Afterthoughts. This is the podcast where we give you our thoughts after we have watched something. I'm your host tonight, Ryan King. Just going to get into it because we're already starting to think about the questionable, uncomfortable movie we watched. Joining me tonight, John Garcia.
Hey, I am ready to talk about Beyond the Infinite White Fragility with you guys.
Yes, also joining us, Michael Dixon.
Hey, Ryan. I just watched this movie before coming over here to record, and what in the world possessed you to pick this movie for us to watch and discuss tonight?
Amazingly, I watched this a few days ago. Usually I'm the one that's watching it right before him. Yes, but tonight we're going to talk about 2022's Soft and Quiet, which is available on Netflix.
I am really, really happy that we are finally doing this. Today, I just want us to introduce ourselves, get to know each other. There's no agenda that needs to be accomplished. I'm a teacher down at the school, and everything thus far has been a step in the right direction in the magazine, but we want to be careful with this first issue, right? We want to engage the mainstream, right? We can't come on too strong, okay? Soft on the outside, so vigorous ideas can be digested more easily. Now, we are the best secret weapon that no one checks at the door because we tread quietly.
What possessed me is I was just looking for things that fell in the crack during the pandemic. I think Another Round is an example of that, and kind of just had me thinking about what's kind of fell through the cracks. And this is a Blumhouse movie that had decent reviews, I guess. It looked like something. It definitely, when I looked at the reviews, looked like it pissed some people off in a way that sounded like it might be interesting. But I do kind of come away with mixed feelings myself. Yeah. Real quick, Soft and Quiet is a one take, pretending to be one take, movie about a group of women who are getting together over the topic of being pro-white, anti-everything else, I guess is maybe the nicest way to say that.
They're persecuted, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't make fun of their plight.
And then from there, as they kind of get together and I guess kind of egg each other on, get into a worse and worse situation, increasingly violent, increasingly stupid. From there, I mean, that pretty much is the movie described. Yeah. We can kind of get into like the particulars of it, but I'll just I'm not exactly sure how to feel about it. It is a movie that gets uncomfortable, and I do feel like the beginning, like the open and kind of the reveals of each thing are the right kind of uncomfortable, and a little surprising, and then it kind of gets to a point where it's like uncomfortable, but it's sort of obviously just stupid at that point. Like they're just being idiots. They just keep increasingly doubling down on their stupidity, and there's not really as much shock per se anymore when it kind of just becomes like, I don't know, horror movie sort of.
Yeah.
I also am like, don't know what the movie wants to say. I think that's probably my biggest gripe. It felt like it started off with maybe something, and there was potential there to get into what does, middle American white housewife who can back up white supremacists feel, and where do they come from? But it plays a little into stereotypes at times, and then I want to almost say like kind of gives up on that and makes them look horrible, like just because they're violent, stupid people. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, John.
Oh, thank you. Take? Thank you so much for just throwing the ball into my
As soon as it gets uncomfortable, I'm just going to throw it away.
I just want to start off by saying Afterthoughts is a multicultural podcast that's just run by three white men, okay? It just happens to be, okay? There's nothing here. My feelings on this movie are, one, I liked the score. I thought the score was good. It was like, really ambient, kind of aggressive when it needed to be and everything. I thought it was shot really well for most of it. There's some parts where the shaky cam and the handheld kind of overtook me a little bit, and I was like, it's distracting.
Yeah.
The shifting of focus and
I
everything
thought there were
else.
some lighting problems too.
Yeah, and it kind of like those parts, I was like, all right, sort of took me a little bit out of it. And then like I feel like this is like Climax meets Stand By Me in like a terrible way, where like
Climax is fun. This movie is
well,
not.
I mean, like in the sense that like Climax is a downward spiral that's done in like one take. This is a similar thing. Stand By Me is about a group of people who should mature after a really traumatic event, but in this one they don't. And instead, I think the audience is the kids from Stand By Me, where we're all just traumatized after. And we're like, I need to go home and think about this. Like, I don't even know. We started out so strong. I liked the way that this movie did some of those intro reveals. It was like the camera work was really playing with like when they would reveal different things that you were like, oh, that's uncomfortable. Oh, fuck, no. None of that, please. And then as it started to go, towards the end when it just kind of falls apart and they're all stupid and doubling down, I felt like there was a missing act where they should have gotten even stupider and like caught or shown some kind of repercussion beyond just like the end. Cause I feel like at the end they were like, we got to have this happen so that you feel some kind of reprieve from how oppressive and fucking brutal this movie becomes. But it never really, for a movie that started strong and then didn't really utilize what it was trying to portray. I felt like it wanted to give you a documentarian feel of like you're being with these people. You can kind of start to understand and bond in a weird emotional way with these humans that are clearly the villains of the story. It ultimately just like, gives up, reduces them to caricatures, and then doesn't do anything with that. It kind of reminds me of how like at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like the Manson family is completely reduced to their stupidity and clownery, and it's just fucking dumb, but in a fun way. And here it's like somehow it shows this brutality and this stupidity at the same time, and it gives them like an unsettling amount of power over what they can do and how they can, even if like at the end of the movie they maybe don't get away with it, who fucking knows now. There was no satisfying conclusion to it. It almost felt like the movie leaned in at the beginning and said, hey, you guys want to see a dead body? And it like took you to see the dead body, and you're just like, all right, was there any reason why? And they're like, it's a dead body. Isn't it fucking creepy? And you're like, okay, fuck, fine. Yeah, it's kind of scary. I thought the actors did a fucking great job, though, being as unhinged as they were. And some of these moments were like really well played from like the emotions that they were grasping and how fucking aggressive they were getting and the hysteria that it devolves into. But beyond that, it's one of those movies where like I walk away from it and I'm like, I just don't know if I'm ever going to go back to that. So I don't know. Dixon, what did you think?
Yeah, so I'm interested to hear that you liked the cast. I did not. I had the exact opposite thought about the cast. I felt like from minute one of the movie, I was like, oh, these actors are not very good, and that's going to be a problem, isn't it? Not near as much of a problem as the script or the entire concept of the film, but the acting was a problem. I think like at the start of the movie, you know, there's like what you guys are hinting at, these reveals at the start are interesting in the way that they're done. And, you know, it starts out with this woman who's a kindergarten teacher at the school talking to this kid, having a good conversation with him. And then she gives this evil look at the black janitor and says, hey, you should go tell that janitor not to mop because you're a student here and you could die if she like mops the floor and you stand on it. And like, okay, that's weird. It's like, I'm going to write that mental note down.
Yep.
And then, you know, she proceeds to go on to a group of, women that she is unclear on what it is. And the way they reveal what's going on there is really well done. Like when she sets the pie down on the table, they go into a church, first of all, and then they go into like this back room and she sets the pie down on the table and pulls the foil back to reveal a giant swastika carved into it. I was like, holy shit. Like just audibly, was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend was sitting next to me on the couch, like on her laptop, and she was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So that was, I thought that was really well done. And like the slow build up of, oh, I don't know if I should be here or not, but like, I just like, I got passed on for a promotion by a minority woman, and it rubbed me the wrong way, and I've been there longer than she had. And then like kind of slowly building toward, oh yeah, my dad ran the KKK in Nebraska, and like I'm still in it, and we're great, and I don't understand why people are scared of me, and we need places where we can like talk about these things. And the slow, it's a fairly quick build, but like as they're like going around the circle and introducing themselves, you're like, oh my god, like this is fucking wild. And then like one of them's like, I really like the name of the group. It just seems very generational. It's wonderful. And then they like pan over to the whiteboard and it says Daughters of Aryan Unity. You're like, oh Jesus. Like, and so there's these little reveals that are done very well. Also, I think the concept of these characters and these like Christian housewives that have this horrible ideology, like growing up in the church, like that's definitely a real thing where like, there are these like these women with these really extreme beliefs that have like more kind of moderate husbands that like don't watch as much cable news as they do, and like don't like fall into the same like extreme belief system, and like the wife is pushing on the husband like this alpha male stuff that maybe the husband doesn't actually like have or want to be. And it's a very interesting dynamic that definitely exists in the Protestant church, especially in the South. And like there are ideas that they're touching on. They're like, okay, that's really interesting. Let's like explore more of those things. I also think the idea of one of the characters, I think Marjorie is her name. She's like keeps being frustrated because she is not where she wants to be economically and is seeing like minorities pass her by. And she's very upset about that. And I don't think that's a correct reaction to that, but I think that is an interesting idea to talk about and to explore like ideas of class in America in relation to race and how those cross over each other and things like that. But then the movie just like all of a sudden turns to 11 and everybody turns into a crazy person. And it goes from like these interesting ideas and these subtle reveals and conversations to like, holy shit, let's go kill them all. And I'm like, okay, this is just like, I don't know how we got here. This is wild. It becomes so upsetting and so hard to watch. Like it felt gratuitous to the degree that this raging group of white women is just like taking out all of their frustration on these poor, these poor minority women that are just trying to live their lives and not get in anybody's way. And it's just like, it's very upsetting to watch. And I just don't know what the point was really. Like, I don't know. I felt like, okay, you start off in the first 20 minutes, there's something interesting here. And then it just goes off into something else entirely. And I didn't care for it.
Let me clarify. When I said that I felt that they were good actors, they would have been great actors for this if it was actually going where I thought it was, which is that it was going to devolve into schlock that absolutely destroyed these neo-Nazi women. Because that's like, the whole like caricature and them cranking up to 11. That's like the basic plot of any revenge film is you have the most evil fucking people that are sinister, and like when it abandoned kind of humanizing them in favor of like they're gonna make this woman pay for like a $300 bottle of wine and then follow her back to her house and like fuck her up. I was like, are you gonna do anything after that? Like I expected one of them, Kim, who kept brandishing a gun, to shoot another one of them and it to become this like absolute buffoonery, but instead they just horrifically murder and like abuse two people. And it was like, okay, it's not going where I thought it was. And it's also not handling this with any manner of grace. And there is, something to be said for, it's a lot of like class and race that's like infused in it, but it just does nothing with those themes. It does nothing to try to explore that.
Yeah. So I do think the open of this movie, Act 1, so to speak, is good and has some interesting setups. There's some parts that I kind of like because it ends up making him so stereotyped, it kind of removes, because whatever the girl is that first says, like, I don't even think I should be here. And then she describes how she got passed up for a promotion she feels like she deserves. We, as the audience, are only getting her side of the story, right? But she does get into the like, I feel like I got passed over because of diversity needing to be important or whatever. And then it's like, yeah, to have someone that's like 2 spots down on the couch be like, oh, I'm part of the KKK. And her, to her be like, well, I had reservations about being in this meeting,
But now I'm
but just
all
being
in.
chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. About that. Right. And you could have had this like differing levels of the women there, and you could have had more conversation about where they're coming from and where they do see eye to eye, but maybe they don't. And, kind of anything there and like digging in more on that would have been really interesting. I do love the like camera turn reveals, the reveal with the pie, like all that was really good. But then, yeah, it just seems like they come out of that where they honestly didn't really know each other. Amazing friends who have each other's back to go down this crazy, maybe sort of revenge thing.
Yeah.
I will say, like, they turn on each other really fast.
Yes,
like,
they
as soon
do.
as the shit hits the fan, they're like immediately chewing each other out and talking shit about each other. And I think that was somewhat the author intent to try to give us this, like, oh, they talk a big game when they're all quiet, hanging out with each other and everything's great. But when the shit hits the fan, they turn on each other first
Yeah.
anyway. But it didn't really
'Cause they,
land
like-
that either.
Yeah. They talk about that too. Like they have allusions to these. So like with Marjorie, the character who was the most reserved in all of them was like, I don't know if I should be here or not. I feel like they could have handled that escalation so much smoother with using any kind of misinformation for her to first be like, I feel like I was passed up on my job and I don't really know. And, maybe she's exploring whatever this fucking concept is, but one of them should have broached the topic and been like, well, what ethnicity was the woman who passed you up? And then cited like a Newsmax article or some shit about whatever it was, like really give into like the fallacies that are driving a lot of what they believe. But instead the movie just yields entirely to tribalism, to like, oh, they really don't think too far beyond just being tribalistic. They're all happy friends until they need to turn on each other. But there's so much more granular like feeding of information. And like they mentioned like knowing people in prison who have certain ideologies or were put away for this or that. And they don't really do anything with those pieces. And then they even turn on one of the other characters, Alice, I think at one point is her name. They're just like, isn't she kind of clumsy? And I kind of expected one of them to be like, yeah, and she's Irish or like some shit like that. Just to like really hammer home that there is still infighting within like people who claim to be like proud white Americans or something. But even that, it was just like, no, she's just clumsy, but she's really well organized. It's fine. And I was like, you stand on the precipice of this goofy caricature and you keep flip-flopping between trying to treat them realistically and then also throwing out these absurd like cardboard cutout straw man arguments and those kinds of aspects.
Yeah, it could have been interesting to actually spend time on the echo chamber, right? And we talk about it here about echo chamber that's been amplified by social media and the internet in general. But there are these echo chambers of small local community. Just you go to see the same people and maybe you don't watch the news at all and you only have this around you, right? That's how you've been brought up and it reinforces what you hear. And so, yeah, I think that could have been an interesting thing to explore. It kind of feels like it just didn't spend enough time there before it got to what it, to this back half of the movie that I feel like it wanted us to feel like, oh, something can go from people kind of talking this game to a violent act really quickly and that their thoughts could lead to something really dangerous. And I feel like a movie like American History X kind of pulled that off a lot better.
Yeah.
And because it had some more time to play with, but we got to hear how people talk to each other and how they pushed their thoughts on each other. And it kind of increased someone's views to be more and more extremist. And then a small chance violent act happens that impacts them significantly, right? And this trying to be like, well, we want to do it in one take, I think also kind of screwed it up. Because the final thing is too big for being from just a small thing that we got introduced. It also is like a blink and you miss it. So let's just go to the middle chunk, I guess.
Yeah.
So they decide they're all going to go get wine and hang out and talk about Nazis, I guess.
because the pastor kicks them out of the church because he realizes what kind of group of
what they're
crazies he's
doing.
led into the house of God.
Yeah. Interesting trivia bit on that. They didn't tell the church that they were filming in what they were doing, and the church was pissed afterwards too. So apparently that's true to life.
Wow.
So they go down to, I guess two of them work at like a grocery store, and they go down there to get some wine. Two individuals come in who are not white, and they start giving them some shit. I think because they've just hyped each other up so much, right? Like they've just had this great conversation. They feel all high and mighty,
Yeah.
and they start talking shit and force them to buy a bottle of wine or whatever. Like they're just giving them shit the whole time. And it's like at the very end that we get this revelation that one of them knows, they kind of know each other
From
right,
like high school
in some way. Well, and then apparently and this is where I'm like, yeah, again, it's blink and you miss it. Our main character, so to speak, as much as you can say it, her brother's in jail.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to call her at one point and she ignores the call. And then one of them mentions as they're like running out of the
Market.
grocery store or whatever, the market, there's like, oh yeah, your brother's in jail, fuck up or whatever, and then runs off. And she says something like, oh, that's the girl that put my brother in jail for, and implies like she just said that she got raped to fuck him over. Again, another one of these echo chamber things we kind of hear. And it's like, okay, but we didn't really get to that or anything. Like, and it was happened so fast in each instance that it didn't have any weight. And it didn't feel like it had enough weight to move to this, let's go up to their house and fuck their shit up. Like that was just such a big leap to the next step.
I feel like the commitment to the one take concept allowed, like it didn't let them to kind of build some of the backstory that was needed to make those moments feel real. And like if they had just said, okay, we're not going to do this in real time, one take, we're going to like have a 10-15 minute like intro of the film to talk about like the history of these characters or something, like maybe it could have helped a little bit. I don't know that it still would have worked, but it felt like the commitment to that approach was a bit compromising to what they wanted to do.
If we felt like maybe they had a few more meetings, like we had kind of this incident, and then they have a few more meetings, and then it comes up again, right? And we could have gotten kind of into it. I did think so. Our main character's boyfriend, Craig, is like the only name I can really remember out of this for whatever reason. He shows up, and she's trying to like hype him up in this like masculinity thing of like, oh, you're supposed to be a real man. You're supposed to, protect me or whatever. Get your shit together. That I was like, oh, I had a feeling that maybe he could have like run out and immediately gotten a fight with them while they were still nearby, and him have misunderstood the situation because he comes in afterwards and they're claiming this big injustice that's not what we saw.
Yeah.
And I was like, that would sort of have made sense, but like, again, that's not where it goes. Like there's little like tidbits of things that would be just enough to get us to something that I feel like it kind of just blows past.
Yeah. Craig just kind of seems annoyed when he comes in.
Yeah.
He was sort of just like, he can't keep doing this.
He's so sick of his wife at this point. Yeah. And that scene where he's like, guys, like, that's a felony. You can't go break into their house. And his wife is like, Craig, do you want your wife to look at you like a little pussy ass bitch? Like, don't be such a puss, you stupid piece of shit. Like, you got to be an alpha male and like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, this just doesn't feel like anything a normal person would ever say. Like, I know we're talking about Nazis here, but this still just feels so like such an absurd thing to say and to escalate the conversation so fast.
I would say even if it did feel realistic, it doesn't feel like enough time to really have Craig be forced into this. Like, I don't know. It doesn't feel persuasive in an aggressive way that it should. Craig just like walk out and be like, fuck it, and I'm done. Like, I don't care. But instead he's like, all right, you guys, I'm going to drive you to that house and I give you 5 minutes. And immediately when they're like, why are you giving us 5 minutes? I was like, oh, God damn it. I know exactly where this is going. We're just on this spiral. Fine. And then watching them trash the house and do a bunch of dumb shit. I will say at one point, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to laugh or not, but when they were trying to clean up the place and Marjorie's like, pushing all the piano keys, trying to scrub the fingerprints off of them. I was like, is this unintentionally comedic or like what? It's so fucking stupid. Just like
I do think, yeah, but when they go to kind of clean up, it definitely is like stupid to almost comedic level, and I don't think it should be, because I was also just laughing at she's like cleaning up the mayonnaise off of the table.
Oh yeah.
Like she has to clean up like all of the mayonnaise. It's like fucking like they're not gonna find anything in the mayonnaise. And I was just sitting there the whole time being like, fuck your fingerprints. Y'all's hair is everywhere.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
there's like 5 women in here. There's fucking hair everywhere.
Like running around screaming and getting into violent altercations. Like there's definitely hair all over the place.
Oh my God.
Which just gives into their sort of their stupid, like I kind of let it go of like, oh, they think of the sort of like, oh, we need to put on gloves, we need to get rid of fingerprints, but they're not realizing like how much DNA they're leaving all over the place because they're idiots.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they decide to just like fuck up the house and steal her passport. There's an implication that she's not American. Never really, it wasn't clear to me if she was or wasn't. Like that also didn't get really explained. I do like the idea. I do like the idea that they thought that she was an American, but I was thinking they were gonna pick up the passport and be like, "Oh, it was an American passport. What the fuck?" But they don't say anything. They just are gonna fuck it up or whatever.
I thought they were going cartoonishly evil, and they were going to be like, let's burn her passport and then report her to the Homeland Security or whatever the fuck. I don't know. It was like, let's call ICE and like get them in here. At that point, I was like, yeah, they're just like completely out of their minds enough to believe that that's a ploy that would work, and that like the government wouldn't have some kind of record of her. It was just like, I don't know, but yeah, then they didn't do any of that either, and. Also Craig just continually being like, you just need to come with me right now. Just like, it's going to be okay. I'm going to put you in this chair and they're going to duct tape you. It's just a prank, bro. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck is this?
And it's like the tension just keeps ratcheting up to insane levels. So I don't remember any of their names. The one who was in prison just like starts going batshit crazy. Like just starts yelling at everyone. Leslie, calling them all, horrible names. And, they obviously turn on each other, but like, she's also like, all right, we gotta like, they, like one of them goes into anaphylactic shock because they force feed her peanuts and she has an allergy. And then they like Leslie refuses to give her EpiPen and then proceeds to be like, all right, it's going down. We got to make it look like a rape. Where are the carrots? I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, this is just like, okay, what are we doing here? This is just gratuitous and gross. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then it was that. And also she's the one to like try to kill her with a pillow, we're led to believe.
Unsuccessfully, I guess, but
yeah, but the fact that she just immediately jumps to like, all right, we got to stage it like this, we got to kill the other one, like, yeah, she just goes completely off the rails, and they're all kind of just like, okay, like they just get dragged along in this stupidity, I guess because they're, I don't know, freaking out or whatever.
I really thought like when Marjorie starts freaking out and they do the audio thing where everything slowly quiets down and she's just like in a catatonic state, that was when the gunshot would pierce and that we would see one of them shot or something would happen and then they would all start panicking. But it was like, again, I feel like this had so many comedic moments that it didn't intend or it was trying to do it. And it just like was tonally clashing. But like Leslie as a character feels like that dude from I, Tonya, the big guy that like tries to orchestrate the hit on Nancy Kerrigan and he just brags about it to everybody. She felt like that. She was like, I'll tell you what we need to do. I saw it on CSI. We like rub the fingerprints off of this and that. And like,
no one's going to fucking know we were ever here.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many moments where it really felt like it was going for like a lampooning of white supremacists in a very caricatured way, but it was telling it with the most gritty, offensive, and exploitative tone possible. And I was like, you couldn't, I don't even know what you're trying to do. So yeah, that whole house scene, I was like, I don't know how much more of this I can take. And then it felt like the movie even rushed to get done with it. Cause when they get the bodies in the car, they're like, yeah, just fucking go. Just go dump it out in the lake. And like, then we'll have the end credit scene and be done with it. It's like
Also,
a movie
when they
wanted to get rid of it.
when they kill the two people and they're like, Kim, go out and find something to put the bodies in, and she just brings in this massive body bag, and she's like, I found this. Will this work?
Yeah.
Some kind of zippable tarp. Yeah, I had that same thing.
Oh, it was for the kayak. It was the kayak thing because they allude
Cover,
to
I
it when they're
guess.
showing up. They're like, "Holy shit! They have this house. They have a kayak." And Craig's like, "Shut the fuck up! Stop talking so loud." So they position it and set it
I
up, but they
see.
don't
Yes.
show the cover of it. They just talk about that. I don't know how many people know that a kayak should be covered. I don't see many of them covered, but the movie tried to set that up. Chekhov's kayak bag, I guess.
It's like, that guy in everybody's neighborhood. There's one of these guys that has like a full cover over his car at all times whenever he's not driving, and you're like, dude, that's a 1986 Chevy Malibu. What are you doing? Like, there's no reason that you need to cover this thing every day.
Exactly.
I think initially when they come into the house, there is some tension and sort of the tension build of like, what are we going to do? Like, right, once they show up, one of them they capture, then the other one, the sister they capture, they're sort of having fun fucking with them. Then, of course, it starts to go off the rails. And there's some tension there, but it's like once one of them's dead, kind of like as a viewer, you're sort of like, okay, like, where are we going with this? And then it just kind of is like, it never really goes anywhere. There's no new tension at that point. And them going and like, all right, we're going to put the bodies away and then we'll go out to the lake and we'll dump them. Like, all has the same level of tension. So this movie kind of just like fades and plateaus at the end, that you're kind of like, okay, what exactly are we going to end on? Like, right, you were like, are we going to get something new? Like they get caught or they run into a cop or something? And it's like, no, nothing like that.
Yeah, like, again, I have my own treatment here for this and how it would have gone, because at that point, when they've killed one of the sisters, you've lost any semblance of connection with these people, which we didn't really have much before. It was like, oh my God, I'm kind of in terror of what they're going to do to the people we kind of like, who we don't even know. They're invading their house. I thought that one of them was going to like snap the dog's neck. I thought Leslie was going to like snap that little dog's neck or some fucked up shit and be like, yeah, it was shit on their bed and leave the dead dog there or something. And so like when they kill one of the sisters, I was like, all you can do is hope that the other sister basically has like a revenge ending, like crawls out of the car, is able to get away. Or they talk about how we don't have a fucking shovel and we got to bury these bodies. And they're like, if one of them had been like, oh, I'm going to get a shovel, let's go out into the woods. And like the sister unzips the thing and like is conscious enough to hit one of them with the shovel and fuck the other ones up. Like cathartic ending where you watch a bunch of those people like fucking meet their end and you're able to cheer for the hero who, even though the movie didn't focus on her much, shows up like halfway through and is getting away. But instead it's just like, just like ride around with these fucking degenerates until they get to a lake. Watch them bitch at each other even when they're at the lake, and then watch them leave and feel like nothing but mixed emotions about what we just saw. Just like, so many missed pieces in this ending. In general in this movie.
Yeah. Also, when they finally they get into that little boat with the bodies and they go out into the lake, and they seem to have a real hard time pushing off the shore and getting into the lake. And then they do like 3 or 4 rows, and then they're like,
right.
all right, here, is this good?
Yeah.
Leslie's like, here, and Emily, I think is the lead,
Yeah.
and she's like, no, we got to keep going out. And she's like, oh, fine.
Yeah.
And they go like 3 or 4 more rows. Is this good? Like, and they're like, okay, fine, I guess this is good. And like, they can't be more than 20 yards from shore, right?
Yeah,
and they're
not at
just
all.
dropping these bodies in, 5 feet of water? Like, how deep can this possibly be? It's just so fucking stupid.
Yeah, they got a sink and they got like 8 cans of green beans to put in there with them.
Yeah. You got 2 bodies pulling the weight up, and they have like 8 cans of food in there just stupid.
I would have liked it. We're already at the end of this movie, which is great.
Yeah.
But I would have liked it if the credits were an actual news broadcast about those women being arrested, having the mug shots of them all looking really distraught. And like, so just some of that kind of shit would be great. I would have loved that at least, but it just goes to like black and does the credits rolling, which are in a font I can't really read too well. So it's like, all right, we missed any chance for that.
My treatment for this movie would be, I actually don't think there's enough material here for a feature film. And I think like you really play into that meeting scene. I think that scene is so well done. I feel like you could do a pretty funny like SNL sketch out of that scene where like you start with that person who's like, oh, I'm not sure if I should be here. You know, like, well, I just got passed over for this job and, you know, I'm not feeling great about it. And like you slowly get like a little bit more insane at every person. And then like, instead of like in this one, it's like, two people down the couch that she's like, oh, I'm in the KKK, but you like go all the way around the circle and you get slowly crazier. And then you reveal that like the last person in the circle is just like wearing a full Klan outfit, you know, and like has been there the whole time and they're all okay with it, you know, and like just kind of like point to the absurdity of the ideology itself, right? As you get a little bit crazier with each one and, you know, each thing is like, whoa, okay, this is getting a little bit more uncomfortable to the point where you just get to like absolute comedic absurdity and then end with like, oh yeah, this, you know, oh, I'm so glad we could have this meeting, guys. It's so great to get all this stuff off my chest. You have them all like, you know, being friends and shaking hands and going their separate ways and just kind of like in shock that they are, you know, like okay with their ideology to whatever level it goes, right? I feel like that's kind of a funny, almost like Chappelle kind of bit that would work pretty well. But yeah, I just don't. I feel like this thing is just too long and there's just too much like violence and chaos for the sake of shock value and not really to tell like a coherent story.
It'd be great to open that sketch by having whoever the leader is sit down. It's like Emily sits down. She's like, thank you all for joining me. I'm sorry that our usual spot wasn't reservable and we had to come to the Multicultural Recreation Center, but like just really have them using all of the government resources that they're like decrying.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's funny. My two SNL pitches that I have are also like an increasing racism pitch. I don't know what that says about SNL. I have one that's like a company that's having to rebrand because they have a racist packaging or caricature or whatever, but they keep bringing into the CEO like, okay, we got to get rid of this one. We got to get rid of this one. And they're increasingly worse. And the CEO is getting like increasingly tired until you get to one that's just like absolutely inappropriate, like over the top. And the CEO is like, we can't get rid of that.
Yeah.
And the other one is a Republican haunted house. And you have a white girlfriend and her black boyfriend going in there and he doesn't realize what it is, but like each room they walk into is like increasingly more like something that would scare a Republican and not like a ghost or a skeleton or whatever. And he's like, oh, come on. And she's like, no, it's just those, it's fine. And then the last room they walk into and another couple comes in and freaks out thinking that them being an interracial couple is part of the haunted house. Like that's the cap.
Nice.
So, but I think that this is a director's first full outing, and I think that shows that she was able to do good short things probably, and the beginning of this movie is a good short film without a way to cap it. And honestly, the back half is a good exploitive short film with kind of a weird way to cap it. Like just, and then trying to smush those two together is where it kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I can't speak to the director's experience. Like, I know that, like, I was looking up her IMDb page and she is half Brazilian and half Asian. And so, and like, that's what they were, the victims in the film. They like, you know, the racists make a point like, oh, what are you? Like, you look like you're a cross between different things. And like, you know, like maybe this film is a representation of like, how she has felt in white society in the past. Like, I don't want to discount that, but yeah, I just don't think the story like really pulls together the way it needs to.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've kind of said what we can say. I guess we'll go around and give our last opinions, John.
As much as I said at the beginning that I liked a lot of aspects of this movie and I can see where it was going, and I still think that it was competently done in shooting and score and all of that, I can't recommend it. It's just it doesn't know what it wants to say, and it's too confusing and like just sound and fury that like by the end of it, you'll just feel drained and you have nothing else. So I can't recommend it. Yeah. Refute.
I'm also going to refute this. Why is this movie called Soft and Quiet? Is that just ironic? Like, is it because they're just loud and obnoxious? Like, why is this movie called that?
I was going to say that. The one mention when they're all meeting of like, oh, we need to be soft and quiet. Again, this is like a good thing in that first scene that's really good, where she says, oh, we're the ones that are going to be soft and quiet, and we'll work through our husbands. We'll work through like these sort of off to the side ways of getting change that we want without being right out and loud. And then the back half of the movie is them being fucking loud and going in. Yeah, not soft, hard. Yes. And I agree. It kind of flips. I think, again,
they're like our newsletter needs to have like, approachable ideas on the cover, and then like we
Inside
hit them with the weird
of,
shit on page 5.
Yeah.
Get them that list with the illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, not that much. That's too much for the first newsletter, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the first edition.
So yeah, I think again that was one of the kind of like attempts at a point, but it doesn't quite land. Yeah. I don't think this is a diamond in the rough or something that got passed over. Like when I was looking, this is one that had mentions of like, oh, you should watch this. It got missed, and I'm like, I think it probably should have been missed.
Yeah.
Not
This
quite
is
sure
an
why
82
Blumhouse picked it up.
Metascore.
Yeah,
Like that's really high. I don't really know what people saw in this.
And that's what I saw when I glanced through reviews. It was either people who were like, this was awesome and it was really uncomfortable, and people that are like, this is really uncomfortable. This is not what racism is. And I'm like, maybe sort of to both of those, but not really.
Yeah.
It's kind of in the middle. And so I thought it was like, oh, I thought this is getting reactions out of people. And I it does. And I definitely feel like there were uncomfortable things, but it wasn't really enough to warrant that.
Yeah, I would say you could recommend it to somebody if they wanted to feel somewhat uncomfortable for a movie. That's the only way. It's like,
very
well, you've
uncomfortable.
been looking for that one movie that just makes you feel very uncomfortable and does nothing else for you. There you go. This one, I was reminded of Cannibal Holocaust, not all the way, but very much like.
Oh no! When John's reminded of Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, exactly. That's a problem. Bam.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's refutes all around. This was a pass of an outing.
John is recommending it for people who have decided that they are too happy today and need something to.
You really need something to balance out your day.
Yeah. If you're dipping your toes in the water before you get to Pink Flamingos or Cannibal Holocaust, this is your maybe a start down the uncomfortable train.
I can say with full confidence, don't watch this if you're doing hallucinogenics and or mind-altering substances. You'll probably have a very bad time.
True.
Full nightmare.
Well, I've been your host, Ryan King. Joining me as always,
drinking water, John Garcia.
And
Michael Dixon. Thanks for putting up with our bullshit.
You're like the guy when the waiter comes right after you took a bite.
Well, yeah.
You're like, oh, no.
Food's good.
Oh shit! I really need some ketchup.
Yeah.
Oh, goddamn, he's gone.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.